The moonlight caught the silver flash of her needle as it moved through the torn fabric, and Irving thought he might be losing his mind, because he had never seen anything so beautiful in all his 32 years of hard living. He had ridden into Dallas, Texas, 3 days ago with a bullet wound in his shoulder, a horse that needed rest, and a soul that felt like it had been scraped raw against the rough edge of too many bad decisions. The year was 1882, and Cole had spent the better part of the last decade running from one thing or another. Sometimes it was the law, sometimes it was men who wanted him dead, and sometimes it was just the memories that chased him harder than any posse ever could. But tonight, he had followed the sound of someone humming a tune his mother used to sing, back when he was small enough to believe the world held more good than bad. The sound had drawn him around the back of the boarding house where he had taken a room, and there she was, sitting on an overturned crate with a basket of mending at her feet and the moon turning her hair to spun gold. She did not notice him at first, too focused on her work. Her fingers moved with practiced ease, pulling the thread through a shirt that looked like it had seen better days. The needle caught the light again, and Cole found himself stepping closer before he could think better of it. "That is fine work," he said, his voice coming out rougher than he intended. She startled, the needle pausing mid-stitch, and looked up at him with eyes that seemed to hold their own light. Even in the dimness, he could see they were blue, the kind of blue that reminded him of summer skies before the storms rolled in. "You should not sneak up on a woman working alone at night," she said, but there was no real fear in her voice, just a mild reproach. "You are right. I apologize." Cole took off his hat, holding it against his chest. "I heard you humming, and it reminded me of something from a long time ago." She studied him for a moment, her gaze traveling over his face with an assessment that felt thorough but not unkind. He wondered what she saw. A man too thin from days of hard riding and not enough eating, a face that bore scars from fights he should have walked away from, eyes that probably looked as tired as he felt. "You are staying at Mrs. Patterson's boarding house," she said, and it was not a question. "I am." "Got a room for the week." "I saw you arrive. You favor your left side when you walk." Cole was not sure what to say to that. Most people did not notice things like that, or if they did, they had the good sense not to mention it. "Old injury," he said finally. She nodded and turned her attention back to her mending. "If you are looking for someone to patch up that shirt you are wearing, you can leave it with Mrs. Patterson in the morning. I do mending for most of the folks in this part of town." "How much do you charge?" "Depends on the work needed." She tied off her thread and bit it clean with her teeth, then held up the shirt she had been working on to examine it in the moonlight. Satisfied, she folded it neatly and placed it in a separate basket at her feet. "That shirt you have on looks like it needs the shoulder seam redone and at least 3 buttons replaced." Cole glanced down at himself. She was right, of course. The shirt had been through hell and back with him, and it showed. "You have a good eye." "I have spent enough years doing this work to know what needs fixing." She picked up another garment from her basket, this one a child's dress with a torn hem. "Are you planning to stand there watching me work all night, or was there something else you needed?" There was something in her directness that appealed to him. No coy games, no false pleasantries, just honest words spoken plainly. "What is your name?" he asked. "Beatrice Harper. Most people call me Cole Irving." He put his hat back on. "I will let you get back to your work, Miss Harper." "I apologize again for startling you." He had turned to go when her voice stopped him. "Mr. Irving?" "Yes. If that shoulder is giving you trouble, there is a doctor on Main Street, Dr. Holloway. He is good at what he does and does not ask too many questions." Cole felt something shift in his chest, a small crack in the armor he had spent years building up. She had seen through him in the space of a few minutes, seen past the lies he told himself about being fine, about the wound being healed enough. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You are welcome." Beatrice bent her head back to her work, and the moonlight caught in her hair again. "Good night, Mr. Irving. Good night, Miss Harper." He walked back to his room at the boarding house, but sleep would not come easy. He lay on the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking about a woman who mended clothes by moonlight and had eyes that saw too much. His shoulder throbbed in time with his heartbeat, a reminder that some things could not be outrun. The next morning, Cole woke before dawn and made his way to the small washroom at the end of the hall. He stripped off his shirt and examined the wound in the mirror. The bullet had gone clean through, which was a mercy, but the entry and exit wounds were red and angry looking. He had done his best to keep them clean, but his best was not always good enough. By the time the sun was fully up, he had made his decision. He would see the doctor, get himself properly patched up, and then maybe he would consider staying in Dallas for a while longer. The town seemed quiet enough, big enough to get lost in, but small enough that a man could find his footing if he tried. Dr. Holloway turned out to be a man in his 50s with steady hands and a calm demeanor. He examined Cole's shoulder without comment, cleaned the wounds properly, and applied a fresh dressing. "You were lucky," the doctor said as he washed his hands in a basin. "Another few days and this would have gotten infected bad enough to kill you. How much do I owe you?" Cole reached for his money pouch. $2. Dr. Holloway dried his hands on a clean towel. "And if I see you in here again with a gunshot wound, I will be asking questions. We run a peaceful town here in Dallas, Mr. Irving, and we would like to keep it that way." Cole paid the man and left, feeling both better and worse than when he had arrived. Better because his shoulder already felt less like it was on fire. Worse because the doctor's words had reminded him of why he had been shot in the first place. It had been a stupid thing, really. He had been passing through a town in New Mexico, minding his own business, when he had seen 3 men cornering a young woman in an alley. Cole knew he should have kept walking. He knew better than to get involved in other people's troubles. But something in the woman's frightened eyes had made him stop, and before he could think it through, he was pulling one of the men off her and throwing the first punch. The fight had been ugly and short. The woman had run, which was the point, but not before one of the men had pulled a gun. Cole had been faster, but not fast enough to avoid catching a bullet in the process. He had left all 3 men alive but hurting, taken their guns and ridden out of town before the sheriff could arrive. Now he was here in Dallas, trying to figure out what came next. He had money enough for a few more weeks if he was careful. He had a horse that needed rest and good feed. And he had a shoulder that needed time to heal properly. He walked back to the boarding house and found Mrs. Patterson in the kitchen, a round woman with gray hair and a kind face. "Mr. Irving," she said when she saw him. "How is that shoulder feeling?" News traveled fast, apparently. "Better, thank you. Dr. Holloway fixed me up." "Good, good." She wiped her hands on her apron. "You look like you could use a proper meal. I have got beef stew and fresh bread if you are hungry." Cole's stomach answered for him with a loud rumble, and Mrs. Patterson laughed. "I will take that as a yes. Sit yourself down." He ate at the small table in the kitchen while Mrs. Patterson bustled about, and it felt more like home than anything had in years. The stew was thick and rich, full of vegetables and tender meat, and the bread was still warm from the oven. "Mrs. Patterson," he said between bites, "I met Miss Harper last night. She mentioned she does mending work." "Yes, she does. Best seamstress in Dallas if you ask me." Mrs. Patterson poured him a cup of coffee. "That girl has been through more than her share of troubles, but she never complains. Just keeps working, keeps moving forward." Cole wanted to ask what troubles, but he knew better than to pry into someone else's past when he guarded his own so carefully. "I have a shirt that needs work. Should I leave it with you? You can take it to her yourself if you like. She has a room above the general store on Main Street. That is where she does most of her work during the day." After finishing his meal and thanking Mrs. Patterson for both the food and the information, Cole went upstairs to his room. He pulled off the shirt he was wearing, wincing as the movement pulled at his shoulder, and looked at it critically. Beatrice had been right. The shoulder seam was coming apart, several buttons were missing, and there was a tear near the bottom that he had not even noticed. He changed into his only other shirt, which was not in much better shape, and headed out to find the general store. Dallas was busier in the full light of day, with people going about their business and wagons rolling down the wide dirt streets. The air smelled of dust and horse, and the promise of rain that might or might not come. The general store was easy to find, a large building with big windows displaying everything from farming equipment to ladies' hats. Cole pushed through the door, and a bell rang overhead. A man behind the counter looked up and nodded in greeting. "Help you find something?" "I am looking for Miss Harper. I was told she has a room upstairs. Go around back. There is a staircase that leads up to her workspace." The man went back to sorting through a stack of invoices. Cole did as instructed and found himself climbing a narrow wooden staircase that creaked under his weight. At the top was a door, slightly ajar, and through it he could hear the sound of a sewing machine in operation. He knocked, and the machine stopped. "Come in," Beatrice called. The room was small but well organized, with a large table taking up most of the space. Fabric was stacked neatly on shelves, and spools of thread in every color imaginable lined another wall. Beatrice sat at the sewing machine, a half-finished dress spread out before her. In the daylight, Cole could see her more clearly. She was younger than he had first thought, probably mid-20s, with fine features and a determined set to her jaw. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and she wore a simple blue dress with an apron over it. "Mr. Irving," she said, standing up, "I did not expect to see you so soon. I took your advice about the doctor. You were right, the shoulder needed proper attention. I am glad you went." She gestured to his shirt. "Is that the one that needs mending?" "Yes." He handed it over, trying not to notice the way her fingers brushed against his in the exchange. "How much will it be?" Beatrice examined the shirt with a practiced eye, turning it inside out to check the seams. 50 cents for the seam work and button replacement. The tier at the bottom will not cost extra since I will already have the thread matched. It was less than he had expected. That seems more than fair. I will have it ready in 2 days. I have several other jobs ahead of yours. 2 days is fine. I am not going anywhere. The words came out before he could think about them, but once they were said, he realized they were true. He was tired of running, tired of waking up in strange towns with no memory of how he got there, tired of looking over his shoulder every minute of every day. Beatrice tilted her head, studying him again with that assessing gaze. "Are you looking for work, Mr. Irving?" The question caught him off guard. "I might be. Why do you ask?" "Because you have the look of a man who needs something to do with his hands. My father always said idle hands made for a troubled mind." She set his shirt down on the table and picked up the dress she had been working on. "The livery stable is looking for someone. Sam Tucker, who owns it, threw his back out last week and needs help until he is on his feet again. It is hard work, but it pays decent." "I know my way around horses," Cole said slowly. "Grew up working on a ranch in Montana. Then you should talk to Sam. Tell him B. Harper sent you. He will give you a fair shake." Cole found himself smiling, a real smile that felt strange on his face after so long. "You make a habit of looking after stray cowboys, Miss Harper." I make a habit of seeing what needs doing and doing it, she replied, but there was a hint of warmth in her voice. Dallas is a good town, Mr. Irving. We take care of our own here. I am not one of your own yet. Give it time. She sat back down at her sewing machine and positioned the dress fabric. Was there anything else? It was a clear dismissal, but not an unkind one. No, that is all. Thank you, Miss Harper. You are welcome. Cole left her to her work and made his way to the livery stable, which was easy to find by following his nose. The smell of hay and horse and leather was familiar and comforting. He found Sam Tucker sitting on a stool outside one of the stalls, rubbing his lower back and grimacing. Mr. Tucker, Cole approached carefully. My name is Cole Irving. B. Harper suggested I come talk to you about work. Sam looked up, his weathered face breaking into a grin despite the obvious pain he was in. If B sent you, then you must be all right. She is a good judge of character, that girl. Can you start today? Today. Cole had not expected it to be that easy. I've got 6 horses that need feeding and watering, stalls that need mucking out, and a wagon wheel that needs replacing. My back went out 3 days ago, and I have been trying to keep up, but I am not a young man anymore. Sam struggled to his feet. I can pay you $2 a day, plus you can stable your horse here for free. How does that sound? It sounds good. Cole extended his hand, and Sam shook it firmly. Then let us get you started. I will show you around, and you can take over from there. The work was hard and honest, the kind of physical labor that left no room for thinking about the past or worrying about the future. By the time the sun was setting, Cole's muscles ached in a good way, and his mind felt clearer than it had in months. His shoulder protested some of the movements, but the fresh bandaging held, and he was careful not to overdo it. Sam left around midday, trusting Cole to close up when he was finished. You did good work today, the older man said, counting out $2 from a worn leather wallet. If you want to keep the job, it is yours for as long as you need it. Even after my back is better, I could use someone steady around here. Business has been picking up. I appreciate that, Cole said, pocketing the money. It was not a fortune, but it was earned honest, and that meant something. Over the next 2 days, Cole fell into a routine. He woke early, ate breakfast at Mrs. Patterson's kitchen, and then spent the day at the livery. Sam was good company when his back allowed him to come in, full of stories about the old days and gossip about the town. Cole learned that Dallas was growing fast, with more people arriving every month looking for opportunities. The railroad had come through a few years back, connecting them to the wider world, and business was booming. He also learned more about Beatrice Harper, though Sam did not realize he was giving anything away. That bee is something special, Sam said one afternoon while Cole was brushing down a mare. Came to Dallas about 5 years ago with nothing but the clothes on her back and a sewing kit her grandmother had given her. Nobody knows much about where she came from, and she does not talk about it. But she built herself a good life here. Works harder than most men I know. Cole filed that information away, adding it to the small collection of things he knew about her. She worked hard. She saw what needed doing and did it. She had left something behind, just like he had, and she had eyes that seemed to see straight through all his carefully constructed walls. On the 3rd day, he went back to her workroom to pick up his shirt. This time, he brought something with him, a small bunch of wildflowers he had seen growing near the creek on the edge of town. It was an impulse, the kind he usually suppressed, but something about Beatrice made him want to take those risks. He knocked on her door and heard her call for him to enter. She was hand-stitching something delicate and lacy, probably a wedding dress based on the amount of white fabric involved. Mr. Irving, she said, looking up with a smile that did something strange to his heartbeat. Your shirt is ready. Let me get it for you. She stood and walked to a shelf where several items were neatly folded and labeled with small pieces of paper. She found his shirt and brought it over. I replaced the buttons with something close to the originals. I hope that is all right. Cole took the shirt and examined it. The work was flawless. The seam was reinforced and perfectly straight. The buttons matched well enough that he had to look closely to see they were different, and the tear at the bottom was invisible. "This is excellent work, Miss Harper. Better than new. I am glad you are pleased." She held out her hand for the payment. Cole gave her the 50 cents, then held out the flowers. "These are for you. A thank you for the work and for sending me to Sam Tucker." Beatrice stared at the flowers for a long moment, and Cole wondered if he had made a mistake. Maybe women in Dallas did not appreciate wildflowers from men they barely knew. Maybe she thought he was being too forward. But then she reached out and took them, her fingers gentle on the stems. "Thank you," she said softly. "It has been a long time since anyone brought me flowers." "They are just weeds, really," Cole said, suddenly feeling foolish. "They are beautiful." She brought them to her nose and inhaled. "My mother used to pick flowers like these when I was a girl. We would put them in a jar on the kitchen table." It was the first personal thing she had told him, and Cole felt like he had been given a gift. "Where did you grow up?" he asked, then immediately regretted it when he saw her expression close off. "Somewhere else," she said, setting the flowers down on her work table. "Is there anything else I can do for you, Mr. Irving?" He had pushed too hard, asked for more than she was ready to give. "No, that is all. Thank you again for the mending. You are welcome." He left feeling like he had lost something important, though he could not say what. As he walked back to the boarding house, he tried to make sense of what had just happened. She had been pleased with the flowers, he was sure of that, but the question about her past had shut her down completely. Well, he could understand that. He had his own secrets, his own past he did not want to talk about. Maybe the best thing he could do was respect her boundaries and hope that, in time, she might trust him enough to let him in. That night, Cole could not sleep again. He kept thinking about Beatrice sitting by Moonlight, mending other people's broken things. There was something so achingly lonely about that image, and it resonated with something deep inside him. He had been broken for so long that he had almost forgotten what it felt like to be whole. Finally, he gave up on sleep and went downstairs. Mrs. Patterson was already in the kitchen, kneading dough for the next day's bread. She looked up when he entered and smiled. "Could not sleep either, Mr. Irving. Seems to be a habit of mine lately. Sit down. I will make you some warm milk." "My mother always swore it helped." Cole sat, and Mrs. Patterson heated milk in a small pot on the stove. She poured it into a mug and added a spoonful of honey, then set it in front of him. "Thank you," he said, wrapping his hands around the warm ceramic. Mrs. Patterson went back to her bread, her hands working the dough with practiced efficiency. For a while they were both quiet, and it was a comfortable silence. "You asked about Bea Harper the other day," Mrs. Patterson said finally. "May I ask why you are interested in her?" Cole considered lying, but there seemed little point. "I do not rightly know. There is something about her that makes me want to be a better man." Mrs. Patterson smiled. "That is a good answer. Bea deserves someone who sees her worth." "What happened to her?" Cole asked. "Sam mentioned she arrived here 5 years ago with nothing." "That is her story to tell, not mine," Mrs. Patterson said firmly. "But I will say this. She has worked hard to build a life here, and she guards her peace carefully. If you are serious about getting to know her, you will need to be patient." "I can be patient." "Can you?" Mrs. Patterson shaped the dough into a ball and placed it in a large bowl to rise. "You have the look of a man who has been running for a long time, Mr. Irving." Running and patience do not usually go together. Cole took a sip of the milk, letting the warmth and sweetness coat his throat. "Maybe I am tired of running." Then Dallas might be the right place for you. She covered the bowl with a clean cloth. We are a town that believes in second chances. But you have to want it, truly want it. You cannot have one foot out the door, I understand. Do you? She looked at him with eyes that were sharp despite her kind demeanor. Because that girl has been hurt before and she does not let people in easy. If you are going to pursue her, you best be sure you are staying. Cole thought about that for a long time after he went back to his room. Was he staying? Could he stay? He had spent so long moving from place to place that the idea of putting down roots felt foreign and frightening. But there was something about Dallas, something about the way the sun looked coming up over the buildings on Main Street, and the way people nodded to him as he walked to work, and the way Beatrice Harper had looked at those wildflowers like they were made of gold. Maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe it was time to see if he could be the kind of man who deserved a woman like her. The next morning, Cole made a decision. He would court Beatrice Harper properly, the way his father had courted his mother back before the world had gotten complicated. He would take it slow, respect her boundaries, and show her through his actions that he was serious about staying. It was easier said than done. Beatrice was friendly enough when he encountered her around town, but she kept a careful distance. She did not discourage him, but she did not exactly encourage him either. It was like she was waiting to see if he would give up and move on, but Cole was nothing if not stubborn. He had survived things that should have killed him, outrun men who were faster and meaner, and rebuilt himself more times than he could count. Winning over one guarded seamstress should not be that difficult. He started small. When he saw her at the general store buying supplies, he offered to carry her packages up to her workroom. She accepted with a quiet thank you. When it rained, and he saw her hurrying down the street without an umbrella, he gave her his coat. When Sam mentioned that Beatrice's window was sticking and she could not open it properly, Cole showed up with his tools and fixed it. Each small gesture was met with gratitude, but nothing more. Beatrice remained polite and distant, like she was determined not to let him get too close. Then one evening, about 3 weeks after he had first arrived in Dallas, Cole was walking back to the boarding house when he heard shouting coming from an alley. His first instinct was to keep walking, to mind his own business the way he should have back in New Mexico. But he had never been good at that, and apparently, he was not going to start now. He turned into the alley and saw 2 men cornering a woman against the wall. It took him a moment to recognize Beatrice in the dim light, her face pale but her chin raised defiantly. "I said leave me alone," she was saying, her voice steady despite the fear Cole could see in her eyes. "Come on, sweetheart," one of the men slurred. He was drunk, they both were, weaving on their feet. "Just give us a smile. Is that too much to ask?" "Yes," Beatrice said flatly. "Now move out of my way." The second man laughed and reached for her arm. He never made contact. Cole was across the space in 3 long strides, his hand closing around the man's wrist and twisting just enough to make him yelp. "The lady asked you to move," Cole said, his voice low and dangerous. The first man spun around, his hand going to his belt where a knife was tucked. "This is not your business, friend. I am making it my business." Cole released the second man's wrist and positioned himself between Beatrice and both men. His shoulder throbbed, but he ignored it. "Walk away now and we will forget this happened." "And if we do not?" The first man pulled his knife, the blade catching what little light there was. Cole sighed. He really was trying to avoid violence, trying to be a better man, but some people just did not make it easy. "Then you will regret it," he said simply. What happened next was fast and ugly. The man with the knife lunged, and Cole sidestepped, catching the man's arm and using his own momentum against him. The knife clattered to the ground, and Cole put the man face first into the wall with enough force to daze him. The second man tried to run, but Cole was faster. He caught him by the collar and threw him down next to his friend. "If I see either of you near Miss Harper again," Cole said, breathing hard, "I will not be so gentle. Do we understand each other?" Both men nodded frantically, scrambling to their feet and stumbling out of the alley as fast as their drunken legs could carry them. Cole watched them go, making sure they were truly leaving before turning to Beatrice. "Are you all right?" he asked. She was staring at him with wide eyes, her back still pressed against the wall. "You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did." Cole picked up the dropped knife and threw it into a pile of trash. "Did they hurt you?" "No, they were just drunk and stupid." Beatrice pushed away from the wall, brushing off her skirt with shaking hands. "I could have handled it." "I am sure you could have." Cole stepped closer, wanting to offer comfort but not sure how. "But you should not have to." For a long moment they just looked at each other. Then, to Cole's surprise, Beatrice started to cry. Not loud sobs, just quiet tears that tracked down her cheeks in the moonlight. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey, it is all right, they are gone. I am sorry." She wiped at her face with the back of her hand. "I do not usually fall apart like this. You do not have to apologize for being human." Cole pulled out his handkerchief, the one Mrs. Patterson had insisted he start carrying, and offered it to her. "Here." Beatrice took it and pressed it to her eyes. "You must think I am ridiculous." "I think you are the strongest woman I have ever met," Cole said honestly. "And I think you just had a scare, which is nothing to be ashamed of." She lowered the handkerchief and looked at him with those blue eyes that saw too much. "Why do you keep helping me?" "Because I want to." He hesitated, then decided to risk it. "And because I am hoping you might let me take you to dinner sometime." Beatrice laughed, a watery sound that was half sob, half genuine amusement. "You are asking me to dinner right now, in an alley after you just fought off two drunks. Poor timing, terrible timing." But she was smiling now, really smiling, and it transformed her whole face. "Yes, Mr. Irving. I will have dinner with you. Really, really. But not tonight. I need to go home and calm down and maybe have a good cry in private." She handed back his handkerchief. "Tomorrow evening." "Tomorrow evening," Cole agreed, feeling like he had just won something far more valuable than any poker game. "I will pick you up at 6. I will be ready." Beatrice started to walk past him, then paused. "Thank you, Cole, for helping me." It was the first time she had used his given name, and hearing it in her voice did something to his chest. "Anytime, B." He walked her back to the building where she lived, making sure she got inside safely, then headed back to Mrs. Patterson's place with his mind racing. He had a date with Beatrice Harper, an actual, honest-to-God date. Now he just had to figure out where to take her and how not to mess it up. Mrs. Patterson was delighted when he told her the next morning. "About time," she said, pouring him coffee. "I was beginning to think you two were going to dance around each other forever." "It almost did not happen. I had to chase off a couple of drunks first." Her expression sobered. "Is B all right?" "Shaken up but fine. I made sure she got home safe." "Good, Mrs. Patterson set a plate of eggs and bacon in front of him. "Now, for this dinner, you should take her to the restaurant at the Beaumont Hotel. It is nice enough to be special, but not so fancy that she will feel uncomfortable." The Beaumont Hotel, got it. Cole ate his breakfast quickly, his mind already running through everything he needed to do before evening. His clothes needed washing, his hair needed cutting, and he probably should buy some flowers that were not just weeds picked by the side of the road. The day passed in a blur of preparation and work at the livery. Sam noticed his distraction and laughed. "Got something on your mind, Cole? I have a dinner with Miss Harper tonight." "Well, well." Sam clapped him on the shoulder, carefully avoiding the injured one. "About time you made your move. That girl has been watching you when she thinks nobody is looking. She has. Cole stopped in the middle of mucking out a stall. Sure has. Saw it myself just last week when you were working on fixing that wagon wheel. She walked by 3 times, which is 2 times more than she needed to. Sam grinned. You are a lucky man, Cole Irving. I know. At 5:30, Cole left the livery and went back to the boarding house to clean up and change. He had bought a new shirt from the general store. Nothing fancy but clean and well made. His hair was freshly cut, courtesy of the barber on Main Street who had taken pity on him. And he had a bouquet of real flowers, purchased from a woman who grew them in her garden and sold them to make extra money. At exactly 6 o'clock, Cole knocked on Beatrice's door. She opened it, and his breath caught in his throat. She wore a green dress that brought out the color of her eyes, and her hair was loose around her shoulders instead of pinned up. She looked beautiful and nervous and absolutely perfect. You look lovely, he managed to say. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. She picked up a small bag from the table. Should we go? The walk to the Beaumont Hotel was short, but Cole found himself wishing it was longer. Beatrice seemed more relaxed than he had ever seen her, talking about her work and asking him questions about the livery. It felt natural and easy, like they had been doing this for years instead of just starting. The restaurant was nice without being intimidating, just as Mrs. Patterson had promised. They were shown to a table by a window that looked out onto Main Street, and Cole held Beatrice's chair for her before taking his own seat. I have never eaten here before, Beatrice said, looking around at the white tablecloths and gleaming silverware. I always thought it was too expensive. My treat, Cole said. Order whatever you like. They both ordered the roast chicken with vegetables, and while they waited for their food, they talked. Really talked in a way Cole had not talked to anyone in years. Beatrice told him about learning to sew from her grandmother, about the satisfaction of taking something broken and making it whole again. Cole told her about growing up on a ranch, about his parents who had died when he was 17, leaving him alone in the world. Is that when you started drifting? Beatrice asked. Yeah, I did not know what else to do. The ranch went to the bank and I just started riding, kept riding for 15 years. He paused, then decided to risk honesty. I have done things I am not proud of, B. I am not a good man, not really. I do not believe that. She reached across the table and put her hand over his. A bad man would have walked past that alley last night. A bad man would not have fixed my window or brought me flowers or worked honest at the livery. You might have made mistakes, Cole, but that does not make you bad. You do not know everything about me, and you do not know everything about me. She withdrew her hand as their food arrived. We all have pasts, Cole. What matters is what we do now, today, tomorrow. They ate and talked some more, and by the time dessert arrived, Cole felt like he had known Beatrice his whole life. She was easy to talk to, easy to be with. She did not judge him for his mistakes, did not ask him to be anything other than who he was. After dinner, they walked slowly back toward her place, neither of them in a hurry for the evening to end. The summer night was warm and the stars were bright overhead. I had a wonderful time tonight, Beatrice said as they reached her door. So did I. Can I see you again? I would like that. She smiled up at him, and Cole thought about kissing her. But it felt too soon, too presumptuous. So instead he just smiled back and tipped his hat. Good night, B. Good night, Cole. He waited until she was inside, then walked back to the boarding house feeling like he was floating. One dinner did not fix everything, did not erase his past or guarantee a future. But it was a start. A good start. Over the next few months, Cole and Beatrice continued to see each other. They had dinner every Sunday, walked together on Thursday evenings after she finished her work, and sat together at church on Sundays. Dallas watched them with approval, the town apparently pleased that their seamstress had found someone. Cole learned more about Beatrice slowly, in small pieces she shared when she felt safe enough. She had grown up in Arkansas, the daughter of a farmer. She had been engaged once, to a man who seemed good and kind until after the wedding was planned. Then he had shown his true colors, becoming possessive and cruel. Beatrice had broken off the engagement, and her fiancé had spread rumors about her, destroying her reputation in the small town where everyone knew everyone. "So I left," she told Cole one evening as they sat by the creek on the edge of town. "I packed up what I could carry and got on a train heading west. I ended up in Dallas, and I decided to stay." "I am glad you did," Cole said. "Glad you left, glad you came here, glad I found you mending clothes by moonlight." "That was the night everything changed," Beatrice said softly. "I had decided I was better off alone, that men were not worth the trouble, and then you showed up and proved me wrong." Cole took her hand, marveling at how small it felt in his. "I do not think I have ever been this happy," he admitted. "I did not think I was capable of it anymore." "We both deserve happiness, Cole. We have earned it." That night, under the stars with the sound of water flowing over rocks, Cole kissed Beatrice for the first time. It was gentle and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Beatrice was smiling. "About time," she said, echoing Mrs. Patterson. "I wanted to wait until I was sure." "Sure of what?" "Sure that I was staying. Sure that I could be the man you deserve." Cole cupped her face in his hands. "I love you, Bea. I have loved you since that first night when I saw you mending clothes by moonlight. You took one look at me and saw all the broken pieces, and instead of turning away, you showed me they could be fixed." Beatrice's eyes filled with tears, but they were happy tears. "I love you too. You made me believe I could trust again, that not all men are like the one who hurt me. You have been patient and kind and good, even when you do not think you are." They sat by the creek for hours, talking and kissing and making plans. Cole told her about his idea to buy a small ranch outside of town, now that he had been saving money from his work at the livery. Beatrice told him about her dream of opening her own dress shop with displays in the window and a proper fitting room. "We could do both," Cole said. "A small ranch is not that expensive, and you could still have your shop in town. We could make it work." "We could," Beatrice agreed. "If you are asking what I think you are asking. Marry me, Bea." Cole had not planned to propose right then, did not have a ring or a fancy speech prepared. But it felt right, felt like the most natural thing in the world. "I know it has not been that long, and I know I am not perfect. But I promise I will spend every day trying to be the man you deserve. I will work hard and come home to you every night and never give you reason to doubt me. Say yes." "Yes," Beatrice said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, Cole Irving, I will marry you." They married 2 months later, on a beautiful October day when the heat of summer had finally broken and the air smelled of autumn. The ceremony was small, held at the church with Mrs. Patterson and Sam Tucker standing up for them. Beatrice wore a dress she had made herself, simple but elegant, with lace at the collar and cuffs. Cole wore his best suit, purchased specially for the occasion. Reverend Matthews performed the ceremony, his voice carrying through the small church as he talked about love and commitment and the sanctity of marriage. But Cole barely heard the words. He was too focused on Beatrice, on the way her hand felt in his, and the way her eyes shone with happiness. When it came time to exchange vows, Cole spoke from his heart. "I promise to love you and protect you and make you laugh every day. I promise to be honest and faithful and to always come home to you. I promise to build a life with you, whatever that looks like, wherever it takes us. You saved me, Bea. You took a broken man and showed him he could be whole again. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it. Beatrice's vows were equally heartfelt. I promise to stand by your side through whatever comes. I promise to believe in you, even when you do not believe in yourself. I promise to build a home with you, a place where we are both safe and loved. You gave me back my faith in people, Cole. You showed me that trust is not something to be feared, but something to be cherished. I will spend the rest of my life loving you. Reverend Matthews pronounced them husband and wife, and Cole kissed his bride to the applause and cheers of everyone gathered. It was the happiest moment of his life. The reception was held at Mrs. Patterson's boarding house, which she had decorated with flowers and ribbons. There was food and music and dancing, and Cole found himself laughing more than he had in years. Sam Tucker gave a toast that had everyone either laughing or wiping their eyes, talking about how Cole had come to Dallas as a stranger and left his family. Later, after the guests had gone home and the sun was setting, Cole and Beatrice walked to the small house they had rented on the edge of town. It was not much, just 3 rooms and a porch, but it was theirs. Beatrice had already moved her sewing machine in, setting it up in the room that got the best light. Cole's few possessions were there too, unpacked and put away. "Welcome home, Mrs. Irving," Cole said as he carried her over the threshold. "It is perfect," Beatrice said, looking around at their little house. "Absolutely perfect." They spent their first night as husband and wife talking about their dreams and making love and planning their future. Cole had never felt so content, so at peace with himself and the world. He had found something he did not even know he was looking for. A home, a purpose, a reason to be better. The weeks and months that followed were some of the happiest of Cole's life. He continued to work at the livery, which Sam eventually sold to him when the older man decided to retire. Cole ran it well, building a reputation for honest dealing and quality work. Beatrice opened her dress shop, just as she had dreamed, and it quickly became the place for women in Dallas to go for fine clothing. They were both busy, but they always made time for each other. Dinner together every night, walks on Sunday afternoons, quiet evenings sitting on their porch and watching the sunset. It was a simple life, but it was good. 2 years after their wedding, Beatrice told Cole she was expecting their first child. He was terrified and thrilled in equal measure, suddenly aware of all the ways he could fail as a father, but Beatrice just laughed and told him he would be wonderful. "You will love our child and protect them and teach them to be good," she said. "That is all anyone can ask for." Their son was born on a spring morning when the wildflowers were blooming and the air was sweet. They named him Thomas, after Cole's father, and from the moment Cole held the tiny, squirming bundle, he was lost. Thomas had Beatrice's blue eyes and a determined set to his little jaw that promised he would be a handful. Being a father changed Cole in ways he had not expected. It made him more cautious, more aware of the consequences of his actions. It also made him more grateful for the life he had built, for the second chance he had been given. He would look at his son sleeping in his cradle and think about how close he had come to missing all of this, how easily he could have kept running and never stopped. 3 years later, they had a daughter they named Alice. She had Cole's dark hair and Beatrice's gentle nature, and she wrapped her father around her little finger from day one. Cole found himself doing things he never thought he would. Playing tea party, braiding hair, chasing away imaginary monsters from under the bed. The years passed quickly, marked by small moments of joy and the occasional challenge. There was the winter when Thomas broke his arm falling out of a tree, and Cole and Beatrice took turns sitting up with him through the fever that followed. There was the summer when Alice got lost at the county fair, and they spent 2 terrifying hours searching before finding her in the livestock barn. petting a goat. There was the year the shop's roof needed replacing, and Cole and Sam spent 3 weeks rebuilding it while Beatrice fed them lemonade and worried. Through it all, Cole and Beatrice's love for each other only grew stronger. They had their disagreements, of course. Cole could be stubborn, and Beatrice had a temper when pushed. But they always talked things through, always remembered why they had chosen each other in the first place. When Cole was 45 and Beatrice was 39, they sat on their porch one evening after putting the children to bed. Thomas was 11 now, already showing signs of the man he would become. Alice was 8, sweet and smart and full of curiosity. "Do you ever think about what might have happened if we had never met?" Beatrice asked, leaning against Cole's shoulder. "All the time," Cole admitted, "and it scares me. I would probably be dead in a ditch somewhere, or in prison, or just still running with no idea where I was going. I would probably still be alone, convinced that love was not worth the risk." Beatrice laced her fingers through his. "You saved me that night, Cole. Not just from those men in the alley, but from a life spent hiding from the world." "You saved me first," Cole said. "That night when I found you mending clothes by moonlight, when you looked at me and saw past all the walls I had built up. You showed me that broken things could be mended, that people could change, that it was never too late for a second chance." "We saved each other," Beatrice said softly. "Yeah, I guess we did." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out one by one. Inside, their children slept safely. In the barn behind the house, the horses they owned were settled for the night. In town, the livery that Cole had built into a successful business was locked up tight. In the shop that bore Beatrice's name, the dresses she had made hung on their forms, waiting for their new owners. It was a good life. A quiet life. The kind of life Cole had never dared to dream about when he was younger and angrier and so convinced that peace was for other people. "Cole," Beatrice said after a while, "I am glad you stopped running." "Me too, B. Me too." The years continued to pass, each one bringing new joys and new challenges. Thomas grew into a fine young man, serious and hardworking like his father, but with his mother's compassion. At 18, he took over much of the day-to-day running of the livery, allowing Cole to finally slow down a bit. Alice, at 15, showed a talent for sewing that rivaled her mother's. She spent her afternoons in the shop, learning the trade and already talking about expanding the business. Cole and Beatrice watched their children grow with pride and a touch of bittersweet nostalgia for the years that had passed so quickly. They were in their 50s now, their hair showing threads of silver, their faces marked by laugh lines and the occasional worry line. But they still held hands when they walked down Main Street, still stole kisses when they thought no one was looking, still looked at each other like they were the most important person in the world. One evening, as they celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary, Cole stood up to make a toast. Their children were there, along with Mrs. Patterson, who was now in her 80s but still sharp as a tack. Sam Tucker had passed 2 years prior, but his memory was honored with a place setting at the table. "20 years ago," Cole said, his voice a bit rough with emotion, "I was a man with no home, no purpose, and no hope. I was running from a past I could not change and toward a future that looked pretty bleak. And then I found a woman mending clothes by moonlight and everything changed." He looked at Beatrice, who was smiling at him with tears in her eyes. "You took a chance on a broken-down cowboy who did not deserve your kindness. You saw something in me that I did not even see in myself. You taught me that people can change, that love is real, and that home is not a place but a person. You mended me, B, in ways I did not even know I needed mending." Beatrice stood and wrapped her arms around him. "And you gave me the courage to trust again, to believe that I deserved happiness." You showed me that love does not have to hurt, that a good man is not a fantasy but a reality. You built me a life beyond anything I dared to dream." They kissed, and their children groaned good-naturedly while Mrs. Patterson dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. "To 20 more years," Thomas said, raising his glass. "To 20 more years," everyone echoed. As the party wound down and their guests left, Cole and Beatrice found themselves alone in their home, the same small house they had rented all those years ago. They had added onto it over the years, expanding it as their family grew, but the original 3 rooms were still there, a reminder of where they had started. "You ever regret it?" Cole asked as they got ready for bed. "Marrying me, building this life?" Beatrice turned from the mirror where she was brushing her hair, the same hair that had caught the moonlight all those years ago, though it was more silver than gold now. "Not for a single second, do you?" "Never." Cole pulled her into his arms. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, B. Irving, the very best. And you are mine." She kissed him softly. "Come to bed, Cowboy. We have got a lot more years ahead of us, and I want to enjoy every single one." They climbed into bed, and Cole held his wife close, listening to her breathing even out as she fell asleep. He thought about the man he had been when he first rode into Dallas, wounded and lost, and so certain that he was beyond saving. He thought about the woman he had found mending clothes by moonlight, who had seen past his scars and his mistakes to the man he could be. She had been mending a torn shirt that night, her needle flashing in the moonlight as she worked. But what she had really been doing was mending him, stitching together the broken pieces of his soul with patience and love and unwavering faith. He had come to Dallas as a stranger, a drifter with no roots and no future. He was leaving it as a husband, a father, a businessman, a friend. He was leaving it whole. Cole pressed a kiss to Beatrice's hair and closed his eyes, finally allowing sleep to claim him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys. But tonight, he was simply grateful for the life they had built together, for the love that had healed them both, for the moonlit night that had changed everything. The moonlight streamed through their window, soft and silver, and in its glow, Cole could almost see them as they had been that first night. A broken cowboy and a patient seamstress, 2 wounded souls finding their way to each other in the darkness. It had been the beginning of everything that mattered, and as sleep finally took him, Cole's last thought was simple and true. He had been found, he had been mended, and he was home at last.